Welcome to the BEASTwriter podcast. I am your host, Ryan Sakamoto, and today we're going to be discussing the trade rumors involving New York Jets defensive tackle Quinnen Williams. For those who don't know, Quinnen Williams is on the trade block. It's been leaked out that he's on the trade block, and now teams are scrambling to find out what they can get if a trade was involved and they wanted that player. Alright, so for those who haven't been following me on the podcast, or for those who do and have been following me on the podcast, you know I break it down to three parameters. The first one is, who are the players involved? The second parameter is, why the trade was made. Does it make sense for both organizations or not? And the last but not least is the instant gratification versus long-term gains. Alright, so let's talk about the player. Who is Quentin Williams? Well, he was a 2019 first-round pick, drafted number 3 overall. For those who don't know or don't remember, for all you 49ers fans, you know that it was between him and Nick Bosa. If you followed me on Twitter, I said that Bosa was the best player in the entire draft, and if Bosa was on the board, he was by far the better prospect for what the 49ers wanted to do. Now, if you're looking at it from a 3-4 base team, then maybe Quentin Williams would play that role, and based on how you grade that player, he might even be graded higher than Bosa in terms of what he provides. He is a stout run defender. In my opinion, he is a top 15 defensive tackle in terms of stopping the run. I graded every single play this season. Yes, I graded all 7 games that he played in, and finally got done with that body of work. It took me about, 2-3 days, this whole weekend for sure, in grading Quentin Williams to make sure that my analytics was adding up to what I was seeing on film from his highlights and so forth. Alright, so getting back to the player, Quentin Williams again was a highly scouted prospect coming out of the draft. It was between him and Nick Bosa as to who the top defensive player would be off the board after Kyler Murray was selected. The 49ers even dined him out at the local IHOP down the street from Levi Stadium, and they really liked what they saw on tape from him coming out of Alabama. Alright, now why are the Jets trading Quentin Williams after drafting him 3rd overall last year? Well, it's a fire sale in New York. They already traded their best nose tackle, Steve McClendon, to the New York Bucks, to the Tampa Bay Bucks, because of Vita Vea and his leg injury. So with Vita Vea out, they had to bring in someone. They got in Steve McClendon. I don't know why the Jets traded him, but they did. And now looks like they're trading their second best player, or arguably the best player on the defensive line, in Quinnen Williams. Now, Quinnen Williams can play the musical chairs along the defensive line. He can play the piano. Basically, he can play the 1 technique. I see him lined up at 3 technique. He can play the 4-eye technique, the 2 technique, the 2-eye technique. He can even line up at 5 technique. So what you're really getting with Quentin Williams is a versatile defensive lineman who can play multiple positions along the line. So he's not really scheme dependent on what you can do with him. So whether it's a 3-4 base as a 4-tech defensive end, you can also shrink him in as a 3-tech, or if you want to play him in a 4-3 over or 4-3 under scheme, he can also play those roles. Alright, so what Quentin Williams brings to the table, aside from for his versatility along the line, is he resets the line of scrimmage at the point of attack. He's very strong when he holds the point of attack, and he's very powerful who sets a hard edge when running backs try to run outside zones and so forth. Now, what I really like about Quentin Williams is his ability to get upfield vertically, whether it's shooting the A gap or B gap, and what he does after the play is really eye-popping to me. He likes to stack and shed. Obviously, you're taught to stack and shed, but what I like is to see how he leverages his stacks and his sheds. So typically when you see defensive linemen line up in their stance and they beat the guy in front of him, the offensive lineman, with a swim move, a club, whatever the case may be, you got to finish the play. And more often than not, you'll see guys missing tackles, being caught out of position because he took a bad angle to the ball carrier. The list can go on and on and on. With Quinnen Williams, you know what you're getting with him. Once he beats the defender, more times than not, he's going to make that play behind the line of scrimmage, and that is a added bonus that doesn't have to be coached up. It's already ingrained in his DNA. So that's something that I like about Quinnen Williams from that perspective. Like I said, he's a perfect fit for a 3-4 team or a 43 base looking for a run defender, run stuffer in the heart of the defense. I believe that he is that guy that can just plug and play, and Again, in my opinion, he's a top 15 defensive tackle, interior alignment in terms of stopping the run. Where the issue comes, it's in the pass. I see Quentin Williams as a marginal pass rusher at this stage in his career. He does get to the quarterback, but it doesn't come with ill will. He's been flagged 4 times this year, 3 of them for roughing the passer penalty, 1 face mask penalty. So if you're doing the math, that's 60 yards of hidden yardage that he's given up just from rushing the passer. Now, if these things can get cleaned up, in Quentin Williams' defense, I would say 2 of those roughing the passer penalties were total bogus. One of them was just, I don't even know what the refs were looking at. It wasn't a helmet-to-helmet contact hit, and a flag was thrown anyways. You can hear the refs talking about it after, and then you can also hear the color commentators disagreeing with that, why the flag was thrown in the first place. But yeah, that's something that needs to get coached up. Either way, it's the way the NFL is played these days. All the rules are dictated to the offense. I hate it. I'm a defensive guy, but hey, it's the way it goes. It is what it is, right? So that's what he brings to the table. You're basically getting a 2-down player with 3-down potential. I really like his ability to rush the passer, but I don't see enough consistency in his game to really warrant a 3-down player grade. All right, but the potential is there. All right, so what's the trade value? So there have been reports saying that it's going to take more than a second-round pick to get Quentin Williams on your squad. Well, from a GM standpoint and the GM viewpoint, conventional wisdom will tell us what? You build through the draft and then you complement the complementary pieces through free agency, right? You don't go out and do it the other way, because in today's day in NFL and the way salary caps are structured, you really can't play that game anymore. Maybe when Eddie DeBartolo was the 49ers owner and took over that team during the glory days, he would just buy players outright, right? With no attention to salary cap, didn't really care. Oh, you want Deion Sanders? Okay, come here for $1.2 million on a cheap, we'll get you a Super Bowl. You want Ricky Jackson? Come on over. You want Kevin Green? Come on over. So players like that during the Super Bowl glory days, obviously Kevin Green wasn't on that Super Bowl winning team, but if you look back in 1994, 1995, they brought in guys like Tim McDonald from the Arizona Cardinals, or at the time the Phoenix Cardinals, and a lot of these veteran players, especially on the defense side of the ball, Bart Oates on the offense side of the ball from the New York Giants, the list goes on and on and on off the top of my head. Wow, I'm taking it way back, but you get the picture. In today's NFL, you can't really do that. You can't just buy a player like, oh, I want Aaron Donald, so I'm just going to fork out money with, paying no attention to the balance sheet. That's not how it works, right? So, with that being said, salary cap does play a role, so you got to look at the instant gratification versus long-term gains. One of the 3 parameters that I look for. And from a GM standpoint, you're looking at it like this. Okay, so if the asking price is at least 1 second rounder, at the very least 1 second rounder, I'm looking at, okay, so I'm going to concede a second round pick for a player that's also on a 4-year contract due to the CBA. Well, I got to account for that in future years moving forward. So I'm just thinking, not just thinking about this year, but I'm thinking about how it's going to affect the salary cap in 2021, 2022, 2023, and 2024. That's 4 years body of work that you have to account for just that one player that fits in your financial sheet. And doing so, how does that, whoever that player is, doesn't matter. You fit that player in your pay structure throughout the course of the season. And when you're taking on a guy like Quentin Williams, well, he was a 3rd overall pick last year. So you're taking on a bigger contract. Still, it's under the CBA and on a rookie contract who can play on a 5th-year deal. But then you have to account for that. So when you multiply that by 2, because you're taking in 2 second-rounders to get Quentin Williams in return, is the return on your investment worth it? These are things that GMs need to ask themselves, and the more important question is how are they going to answer to the local media when that player does not pan out? Because we all know there's no guarantees that player is going to pan out to be worth 2 second-round picks. Just like there's no guarantee that those second-round picks that you trade for will pan out. It's a crapshoot, but at the end of the day, if you're more right than wrong, there's more validity in why you're making these deals, right? All right. So trading 2 second-round picks for a 2-down player is a hard sell. That's all I'm going to say. I think Quentin Williams has all-pro potential. In my opinion, I think he can get coached up, and I'm going to dissect 5 teams who are the best cultural fit for the Alabama product. All right. Whew. All right, starting with, you guys are ready? Drum roll. Team number 1, the Seattle Seahawks. Why the Seattle Seahawks? Well, The need for the defensive lineman is there. Jerron Reed just signed a 2-year contract extension, but that's due after the 2021 season. So you really need an insurance policy in case he bolts, right? By getting Quentin Williams, you're getting him on the cheap, and John Schneider, although he does well with second-round picks, I wouldn't be surprised if he pulled the trigger, because you plug in Jerron Reed next to Quentin Williams and you automatically have one of the best interior run-stopping duos in the NFL, hands down. And we all know that Seahawks coaching staff is one of the best in the NFL. Whether you're a Niner fan or not, you have to agree with that. The Seahawks coaching staff is one of the best in the NFL, and for anyone to think otherwise, you are kidding yourselves, especially on the defense side of the ball. With the way they call the hawk tackling techniques, whether it's a drive for 5, eyes through the thighs, things like that are coached up. Take your head out of the game and you hit with your shoulders. They're a shoulder tackling team and they do it very well. That will all be coached up with Quentin Williams and add the fundamentals that he's already playing with and possessing at this early stage in his career. It's only going to amplify his success down the road. Alright, so that's why I believe Quentin Williams is a perfect fit for Seattle. I can see them pulling the trigger. They already did it with Jamal Adams, who was also on the New York Jets. So what do you think they're going to do when they're going to inquire about Quentin Williams? I bet you Jamal Adams will be like, hey dude, can we get Quentin Williams? Heck yeah, why not? Why not? The Seahawks are in this year, the Seattle Seahawks are my choice to go to the Super Bowl. You add Quentin Williams, that's only going to increase their chances of making it to the big dance. All right? Whew. So that's a perfect scenario right there. Let me talk about Everson Griffin. So he is also on the trading block, and one of my followers, the Illuminati asked me, hey, Everson Griffin's on the trade block, where do you see him going? And honestly, I'm going to go back to the Seattle Seahawks. You look at guys that played for the Seattle Seahawks on 1 to 2 year prove-it deals. It dates back all the way, to 2010 when John Schneider was the head coach, GM. And you look at guys like Atiba Rubin, Sheldon Richardson, guys that they really traded for, hoping that would have that kind of an impact that Quentin Williams would provide. Same scenario here. So Everson Griffin, in the later part of his career, can still add value. I believe he is also in play in Seattle, but we're just going to have to see how that plays out. But look for Everson Griffin to try to... I wouldn't be surprised if Everson Griffin made his way to Seattle. All right, but getting back to Quentin Williams, Seattle Seahawks, that's one team. The second team, your San Francisco 49ers. Yes, DJ Jones is playing in the last year of his contract. I don't see him returning, and if he does, he's going to have to take it on the cheap deal, the hometown discount. I don't see DJ Jones doing that. And by adding Quentin Williams, you add an insurance policy in case DJ Jones bolts, because Quentin Williams is under contract, and he's available for a 5th-year option, being a first-round pick. Team him up with Javon Kinlaw. It also allows defensive end Eric Armstead to stay outside in nickel situations next year. With him and Bosa on the outside, you have Kinlaw and Quentin Williams up front. That's 4 first-round picks right there at your disposal. All right? Then, what would it take, though, for the Niners to get Quentin Williams in San Francisco? Well, guys, it's going to take at least a 2nd-round pick, and the 49ers already gave up 3rd and 5th-round picks from the trade for Trent Williams. Remember that? So if they were to give up a 2nd-round pick, at least a 2nd-round pick, that's a lot of draft capital for the team to give up for a player who's basically a 2-down player at this stage in his career. Now, is it worth it? In my opinion, you got to weigh the risk versus reward, and I would do it just because Quentin Williams, I believe, has all-pro potential. I see it in his game. When he goes up against all-pro talent like Quentin Nelson, he holds his own. When he goes up against guys like Trent Williams, the guy had 2 sacks in that game, Quentin Williams, and 2.5 tackles for loss. The guy's a beast, right? Going up against the 49ers. So, if anything, that was an audition for, hey, man, look at me. I can play. I can play for San Francisco. Quentin Williams, to me, is a player who would fit in that wide 9 scheme perfectly, being as an interior presence and interior rusher. All right? But I just don't see that happening, especially if the 49ers finish around 500. Just because the way the draft position is set up, I feel like there's other needs, more glaring needs along the team's front, mainly the offensive line, that needs help. So if they're not going to make a strong case for the Super Bowl run this year, I would hold on to the pick, maybe solidify the offensive line and go from there. All right. My third team, though, we have the Oakland Raiders. The Oakland Raiders is led by GM Mike Mayock, and Mike Mayock favors interior rushers more than he favors outside pass rushers. Before covering the Oakland Raiders as a GM, he was an NFL Network analyst and draft guru, and he said himself that the quarterbacks that he's spoken with said that interior rushers create more havoc as pass rushers than outside edge rushers, which means if you can collapse the pocket, that's going to bring a high grade here in Las Vegas. All right. Raiders have a huge need at defensive tackle. It gives Las Vegas 3 foundational players along the defensive line they can work with moving forward. They drafted Clelin Ferrell. I still don't like the pick, but in the first round, they got Max Crosby, relief there. And then you add in Quentin Williams. That's 3 plug-and-play players for the future that you can work with. All right. Now, my fourth team, if that all else fails, the Green Bay Packers. All right, the Green Bay Packers are my fourth team. Why? Well, it would be an upgrade over Tyler Lancaster and Dean Lowry. One, it would give. Secondly, that was one reason. 2, it would give nose tackle Kenny Clark some help in front side containment. And when they play that 3-4 base, you'll notice that Zadarius, the Preston Smith brothers and Zadarius Smith, the Smith brothers, they really do a good job of setting the hard edge as outside linebackers, but you really need someone up front that can really hold the point of attack. And the Packers are doing a pretty good job considering with the talent that they have, but let's face it, Tyler Lancaster and Dean Lowry are nowhere near Quentin Williams level. You add Quentin Williams level, you're getting like a BJ Raji type of prospect, not at the nose tackle position, but as a defensive end in that 3-4 base, and brings that type of presence from a 2-down run stuffer. All right? Turns a weakness into a strength, in my opinion. All right? But, again, that's for Gutekunst to pull the trigger on that one, and we're just going to have to see how that plays out. Now, the last team that I'm going to point out in my 5 teams of potential landing spots for Quentin Williams is the New Orleans Saints. Why? Well, defensive tackle Malcolm Brown, who signed a 3-year, $15 million contract coming over from New England Patriots, is going to be playing in the last year of his contract after next year. But by looking at it in 2021, by releasing or trading Malcolm Brown, you save the team $5.5 million in cap space. So what you can do is you can use that money and roll that over into Quentin Williams because you have to pay him, right? Because he's under contract. So you can roll that money over. I don't see Malcolm Brown being re-signed after the final year of his 3-year deal anyways. So at least you get something for nothing if they were to trade him or even just simply cut the ties with him after the end of the year. That's just my thinking from a GM perspective. Quentin Williams is younger and he has an insurance policy, and more importantly, provides all-pro potential if the pass rush comes alive. So that's why I feel like the Saints would be a player for Quentin Williams, because he adds those dimensions and basically makes that defense a whole lot better. All right, so that's it for today. I hope you liked my podcast in regards to 5 potential landing spots for Quentin Williams. If you like what I had to say, go ahead and hit the subscribe button, the lower left-hand corner? Yeah, the lower right-hand corner on your screen. And be sure to stay up to date on all things Beast, as I'll be doing fun giveaways for everyone who does. Thank you very much. Have a good night. Peace.